All right. Welcome back, traders. February is in the books. Insane month. This market was just really insane. There's the only word I can describe it. Again, like I said on Twitter, kind of conflicting month. Pulled in about $19,000, but it was a different feeling about it, right? In terms of real world money. Right. Like it's literally almost identical, almost $300 away from what I made in January. So have to have two back-to-back months like this, it feels really, really good. But in terms of how I traded, you know, I wasn't all too happy about it, to be honest. You see this third week right here. This is my worst losing week ever. My biggest losing week ever. And of course, that's going to happen. That's eventually as I just get bigger in size. Like, of course, it's going to happen. But for it to happen, it would kind of hit me. I was like, wow, I'm trading really poorly in some of these stages of this month. So we're gonna get into that and how I learned from it and how I'm gonna go through it. And of course, week by week, I'll go through all the main trades. And so let's get to it. Took a lot of trades this month. So first week wasn't too eventful. The only big trade that stood out was Tesla. I'm sure most of you probably follow it, even though it's not small cap land. It certainly started to act like a small cap. It went from 200 to well over, close to 9,000 or 1,000. And so that's kind of me looking at like a small cap, thinking it goes from $2 to $9. So I was, of course, being patient with it. Right, it's not my expertise. It's not something I normally like to trade because it is such a larger price stock. But it was something I was watching for and potentially seeing if it could make a backside move. And so we see here, just waiting, nothing. I really need to see a proven backside play to want me to get interested and get short, right? I'm not going to just start stabbing into strength thinking I know how this works because I don't, right? This is, again, a completely different stock than what I'm normally used to trading. And so I stayed patient. I let this whole run play itself out. And until we get to 1,000, because 1,000 is a round number. As we get closer to there, people might just start selling because it is a round number. So I wanted to see how it would react here. We do have this big spike, and I remember did take a starter into one of these moves here, one of these bounces, and we did pull back, but again we're holding, right? And so I covered. I said, you know what, we're not nearly as weak as I think we should be. I'm gonna just dodge this bullet. I think I took like a small loss after it started grinding up in here, um, and I said I'm done. Like, I'm not gonna try to play these games and pick a top. Now, come late day, it had this massive wash, right? And so for me to see something like this happen so quickly, this reminded me of TLRY, right? I don't want to do it because it's gonna take too long. But my Wi-Fi is really slow today for some reason. But Tilray was a big large cap runner back when the weed run was hot. And so if you were there and you watched how that moved on the top day, once it hit 300, it died. It smacked down so hard, and it was very similar to this move where Tilray pulled a lot harder. I think Tilray pulled like almost like 40% in like less than like 10, 20, 30 minutes. So this wasn't that big of a pull, but to see how violent this was, that was what reminded me of it. And so I immediately thought, okay, this is likely done. But I don't want to make it take, any really large position overnight because it could just keep yapping, right? Remember, this is Tesla we're talking about. So I did take a very small starter. I took like 2 shares, right? So if it gaps up $100 on me, I'm down, $200. I was willing to do that just to get a starter on, just to not feel FOMO, like just keep my FOMO low, have something overnight, be able to reevaluate in the morning, and then take size I want in the next day. And so I did that. Next day, it did gap down. So again, I feel better that I took this starter. I'm like, okay, I got a little cushion of cash. I can now start adding into my position and look to see this make an official backside move. So unfortunately, I did miss this pop pre-market. That was probably the best entry, but I did start shorting into this one. And now I was only took about half the size I wanted because I did want the open to come. I did want the market to open. I wasn't going to take full size pre-market. You never really know what's going to happen. And we actually just start fading hard, right? And we pull. Now this bounce was a good one to add, but again, if I'm entering up in the 860s and it's only 840s in the red green levels, you know, about close to 900 up here from the price prior, uh, I didn't add. I was like, you know what? No, I have the size I have is the size I'm going to get unless it spikes higher. I'm just going to let it ride out. So we did. It kept fading, and for this to go from 200 to 900, so quickly, I thought I was being aggressive. Like, this is a massively overextended. There's a lot of people who need to get out. I'm gonna stay patient. So I didn't cover any here, right? I really, really thought it could get below 700. I didn't think it would do it all in one day. So I was prepared to swing for a day or two, but when we start panicking now midday and we hit, 720 or like 705 is the low, I said that's close enough, right? I don't need to wait for sub 700. The reality is it panicked just as hard as I thought it would. So I covered low 700s, made like $1,000. So that was really, really cool to nail something that I'm not used to, like such a high price stock, but it did play out exactly like all of these small cap runners that we see, every other week. So that was really cool. That was really the main trade of this week. Nothing else special, like small losses that appear, small win there. But then we get into the second week. On the 11th was ONTX. This is probably one of my better trades this month, or of that week at least. Was, this is just another low price runner, went from 30 cents, now touching 75 on the top day. And so I'm thinking, right, again, typical as always, I'm looking for the backside, right? When is this going to finally pull back? And, something that really screwed me up in the beginning was I really don't know what I was thinking. I just thought I could start stabbing and be right, so like into this here and into this here, I just started shorting. And I had to cut it for when I got squeezed here. I had to cut it again when it started grinding up. And so I just took a step back because now I'm down like $600 after losing $300 twice. I'm like, what am I doing? Right? I'm just stabbing into the stock with no solid patience, or I mean I had a plan, but like it wasn't breaking down. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing just shorting this stock here? It didn't make any sense, so I had to step away. I missed, I just walked away, didn't go, all right, left the screens. And then you see here it finally pulled like hard, right? And so what I'm thinking, I wasn't here for this, I didn't see this, but I did see this bounce. I came back, I came back to my screens, and I said, okay, this is what I want to see, right? I should never short it up in here. Excuse me. This is where I should have entered, right here. And so I actually do start entering. I start getting short, I believe, when it starts fading on this bounce. And then I short into this strength on this little bounce. And, before you see how much it tanked, from my personal experience with lower price stocks under a dollar, usually when it gets 2 or 3, 4, 5, they all act slightly different. But something distinctly I've noticed about, 50 cents, 65 cents, 85-cent stocks is that when they pull much harder and much faster, right? You might think a typical $4 stock could pull down, 10, 20% after having maybe 100, 200% run. A sub 50-cent stock, after having 100 or 200% run, it usually pulls like 30%, maybe even 40. I mean, they really die. And so I kept that in mind on this one. I said, I think this is going to pull hard. And so I actually had a little fantasy order. I had all my shares at 51. I was like, if it can get to 51 today, I'm taking it. And you see what I mean? Like it literally happened so fast. I was shocked that it got that quickly. But again, this is why I had that order there, because I was like, these can pull much harder than you expect. And this one, even expecting that it would pull harder than I expected, it still pulled harder than that. So luckily I made all my money back from these losses. And then I ended up making like, I think 1,200. How much? Let's see, yeah, 1,200 on the day from this just one trade. And then I reshorted into this bounce, covered into this dip, and that was that. Didn't want to play it at all this day, kind of left it alone. But just seeing this chart here, it was pretty sweet move. Very happy how I traded that, to kind of regroup after these losses and then make that money back and more. So that was on the 11th. Nothing special about the rest of the week except for my biggest trade ever, beating RAVX last month, which was UOMO. Now, again, you guys, if you follow me, you know what my biggest wins are, which are promotions, OTC promotions. And UMO was the one of the month. This one was one I didn't expect to come around. I did see this kind of like little action, but again, no volume. I was like, okay, like whatever. And then we start getting more extended. And I'm thinking, okay, this is looking like a promotion. I do some research, like I go to otcmarkets.com, like I did my very first video lesson, if you haven't seen that already. And it's a promotion, right? It's clearly confirmed promotion. And on this red day here, after the close, it got the skull and crossbones. It got this caveat emptor. So at that point, I'm thinking, this is going to be weak, right? I immediately thought, seeing the spike like this, okay, this could go to maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 if it got aggressive, right? Because RAVX blew my expectations. I'm going to be prepared that thinking this could get much higher than I expect. So then once it got the CE, I quickly realized, okay, this will be weaker than I thought. Now, it kept going. I kept having a couple green days. So I thought, okay, maybe it gets to now 3 or 4, right? I keep adjusting my price target as to how high I think it could go, so then I could size in correctly from there. And so we then get another red day, right? And so, at least from my perspective and how I see these things work, I could be totally wrong, but this is how I understand them, is that, you kind of want, like, if you're a promoter and you want to sell shares, you kind of want to sell them as high as you can. Now, you don't want to sell them on a stock going up 300% because they don't want that kind of attention per se, especially when the SEC could halt this at any moment. And that's what I kind of think was going down here, is that, you know, RAVX just got halted. The CE is, being slapped on every ticker more than ever. And so, the last thing that the promoters want this to happen is to get halted, right? And so the fact that it kept having these red days without ever really getting a good green kind of promotion going, it made me think that this is weaker than I expect. And I ultimately said, I don't think it's gonna get over 3. The reality is it didn't even get over 2. Um, but again, that was cool because I was able to size up. I was never fully prepared for it to go to 3, never even really tested my tolerance going over 2. And the next thing you know, it just gives it all up, right? Out, most of these promotions die, right? And so by the time the second day got to 20 cents, I covered around 19 cents, and I made the biggest gain out of $11,800. So that was really, really cool because, you know, I made a big gain very similar to that with RAVX. But if you watch that video in January, I had to go through a lot. I had to really, rethink my plan and see how high it could go, because RAVX kept going higher, right? It kept going way higher than I had originally planned. And so UMO didn't. UMO did the exact opposite. It went much lower than I actually ever thought it could. So the I guess the tolerance, or the roughness that you have to go through before you see your trade plan work, was way less on UMO. So that was a really cool feeling. So that was pretty much it for week 2. Just two really good trades. These two other small trades just kind of cancel each other out. And so biggest week of the month right there. Now, week 3. This is where, I kind of fall apart a little bit. This is where I hit a lot of, speed bumps. And I started off Monday really poorly with GNPX. So this was a big, big runner from, started up at sub $2, $1.30, $1.30. And in 2 days, it's up close to 6, right? So we're, and again, you see this massive blow off spike, right? It goes from 3 to literally 6 in a matter of an hour. So 100% spike in an hour has this huge pull down to 4. And so my natural instinct is to think a pull that big is likely done, right? It might bounce around like it did here, but the next day I want to be aggressive, right? I think it could pull. It's going to have its first red day. That's my thinking. At least the odds are in my favor in this situation. And so next day, we see this level here. We see that this key bounce topped out about 475, and you kind of see here it's really these these it bottoms out around 475. So then it tops. So previous support now becomes new resistance. And so I was looking at that as a key level. And now if you see here at the open, right, it had tried to have a morning spike and it topped out just under 475. Okay, so I'm seeing that and I'm thinking in real time, again, high odds. It should be backside at this point. It's failing to get over these new resistance levels, prior support. I think it's going to break down, right? So I start shorting up in here, and we rip. We just absolutely rip any short who was in there, right? And so I took like $800 loss. So that kind of sucked. But again, I got to respect my risk. I got to respect my plan, and so I cut. Now, if I was going to reshort, this lower high bounce should have been it, right? It was close enough to the high day now. I could have given it one more shot, and that would have been, ideal, right? It would have pulled. I could have made some money back. Unfortunately, again, I'm trading very poorly, right? So I don't short here. I then start shorting up in here, right? After from 530 to nearly 450, an 80-cent pullback, I'm now shorting the lows here, which is terrible, right? It's such an awful entry. And I was so distraught from this loss, which I really didn't think I was, but for some reason I'm now shorting here, which is just terrible, right? And so I think I'm right. If it pulling it here, and then again rips, consolidate, rips again, and so I have to cut it into this spike, being full size on both trades. So now I've taken two $800 losses, which is why now you see I'm now down $1,600 on the day. it does not the worst thing in the world. I did recognize that I have had a rougher day like this every 3 or 4 months. I did tweet about that. Back in like October, I took like a $1,200 day. I think back in July, I took like a $1,700 week, right? So I've taken these hits before. So I said, okay, no big deal. It happens. Let's just keep going. And so, as the days goes on, I shorted SPCE. Now, SPCE was very similar, gave me a similar vibe to Tesla because it was a big, larger cap mover. But again, this thing ran from, $20 now up to 40 in like a week. So I thought, this, and again, this company, I don't want to talk too much of the fundamentals because that doesn't really matter, really. The price action is always king. But, this company hasn't had it taken to anyone in space yet, right? They're very early in the stages of their company, and this thing's just running because it's hot. It's a hot space company, right? And so I was looking for the backside, right? Stayed very patient. I'm very glad how patient I was. And you kind of see this move here. I wouldn't say parabolic, but it had this pretty decent spike that it hasn't had in the prior days of its run. And then it pulls. And so I'm thinking, can it break these 38 highs to go to 40 or maybe 50, or is it going to fail? And so you see this clear lower high, fails again, another bounce, fails again, fails again. So I'm thinking, I have to take a starter at least. I have to get something short here because I genuinely think, there's going to be weakness out of this, right? It should have held way better if it was going to keep going higher. And so I want to get short. I shorted right around here, around like 35, maybe high 34s here. And right away, panicked, weak bounce, panic again. So I very quickly, within a matter of hour, was just spot on. So I'm very happy with that entry. That was very cool. Uh, now, knowing that what I did from Tesla, right, I was very patient with Tesla, and that paid off. And so thinking the same idea with this one, I'm like, you know what, this is just pulled the hardest it's pulled. It just failed this bounce. It's fading into the close. I have to hold some overnight, right? And so I did cover a little bit here, but majority of my position I held over. Now you see here, it gaps. And so I'm waking up to this gap thinking like, what on earth is going on, right? Like, I would, I don't know the exact odds of this setup, but it's like more times than not, having a fade so hard like this and fading into the close, I have to give, I'd have to give it a shot overnight, at least 80% of the time, right? I'm going to hold overnight. And so for something to gap up like this, I was just very kind of confused. But at the same time, again, this is a larger price stock, very similar to Tesla. So I kind of accepted it for what it was, is that, okay, I was wrong. I just, for whatever reason, it's gapping, right? It's not working. It's not a small cap. So of course it kind of make sense. And maybe I was a little bit too aggressive. So I did take a piece off here into this pull. Unfortunately, did overstay my welcome and had to cover more into this chop. So unfortunately, what was, about $1,000 gain back down here in 29s ended up me only making about, 200 or 300 after getting caught in this gap up. So that was frustrating, realizing that this isn't, a small cap, right? Having a large cap like this, such a pull like this, is something I should have taken, right? I think in hindsight, looking at it, I was probably too predictive, thinking that fading like this could lead to more fading again. And of course, it easily could have, right? It could have easily gapped down and faded more, and I would have been right. But for whatever reason, it didn't. So, I think the best thing would have done to cover at least half into this pull, cover more, and hold a smaller piece versus holding a majority of my size over versus maybe only half, right? Then I would have at least locked in more size. So that was frustrating. Gave a lot of money back there. Next play was SPOM. This was one that goes from 3 cents and is now touching 40, and so I'm thinking like this is and this is an OTC, so it's just even lower priced crappy OTC. I'm looking for the first red day, and we get that, right. We see it right over here on the side before it squeezes me out. It pulls, and I get short right into the red move. I do cover a little piece right into the low 30s, and then out of nowhere, I mean, it just rips, just absolutely rips. I mean, literally from 31 cents to 100% spike in a matter of 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Luckily, I did react very quickly. I did cut on a new high a day. Right when it broke 40, I got out at like 42, 43. So thankfully for that, or else I would have, getting squeezed 100% in a matter of 15 minutes would not be a good feeling. Now, because it was so wild and because I just totally underestimated it, I didn't reshort. Looking late day, it actually does end up fading back to new lows, which is just insane. But I didn't reshort. I thought, having a move like this, clearly there's something up I don't understand. Clearly there's something that, isn't right about this ticker. So, or at least for an OTC and how I think OTCs trade. So I left it alone. Took like a $350 loss, just called it a day on this ticker. I was over it. Now, as we keep going into the week, now we're hitting, the 19th and the 20th. Uh, I just start taking just these non-ideal trades. Like I start shorting PAVM, which again is it's an extended runner on the daily chart here, but it just isn't something about like the more experience you get, you start to learn what tickers have good price action for your strategy, which ones look weak, which ones look strong, which one, have refresh buyers, refresh sellers, which ones have dilution, which ones don't. And so this one kind of just from the beginning gave me the vibe of like, this is not a crappy runner that I normally short, right? And so I tried shorting on the 19th here after I had this hard wick. I'm thinking, it should have a red day, right? Odds are in my favor it should have a red day. But again, if I'm just trading price action, I don't actually know the company or what they do or how maybe well or who else is buying. Like maybe some pension fund or some inside fund is buying the stock up, which is why it had so many grinding days like this. Like I don't know what's going on, right? And so I took like a $300 loss trying to short this day. I then started shorting plug. Uh, had to cover near 6 up top here because it just looked like it kept going. And now plug is a larger cap stock too. So when I believe on this day on the 20th, when the SPY finally started pulling in news of the coronavirus, and you can see here it kind of similarly is following SPY right now because the whole market's getting crushed. It panicked, so it had to end up having a red day. But I lost $300 in the morning because it was strong, it was squeezing. So again, just normally these tickers just aren't the crappier low price stocks that I trade. They are low priced, but they're in terms of how they move and what kind of company they are, and like so many other meticulous little factors about what stocks I look for and how and the little details I look from. These just weren't it. They weren't ideal. They weren't that extended, and ultimately I take losses on those. Right. So it just already added to insult to injury on top of what I was already trading poorly on GNPX on Monday. I just proceeded to take more and more losses. And now to finish off the 20th with another $1,600 loss day was I was short another promotion of LITH. Now, this is what I call hybrid, where it is a promotion, right? I can prove it's a promotion. OTC Markets says it's a promotion. They have, text messages and emails going out, but it's acting like a runner, right? It doesn't look like an RAVX, a UOMO, right? It's doing a little bit of both, right? It looks like a runner, but then it pulls hard like a promotion. And so I missed this run, but I wanted to shorten this bounce. I thought it could follow the 7-step framework, right? This looks like a number 6, and it should fade off. I was shorting all into these days, and I started second guessing myself, right? Taking all these prior losses in the month and just feeling distraught and not, I clearly wasn't seeing the market well. I start second guessing this trade, and so I'm thinking, if this starts heading higher, and this keeps going like a runner, I can't stay short like a promotion, right? The way I treat promotions and the way I treat runners are two completely different things. So when it started breaking out on the 20th here, up into this day, like just slightly pushing over the highs of this bounce high, I said, you know what, I want to be out. Like I just not gonna deal with this uncertainty. The price action is not going the way I want. I'm cutting it. Now, in hindsight, after this day, it totally stuffed, like huge volume, tried to go higher, and it ends the day actually, with this huge wick. And so at this point, I thought, maybe I should have stayed short, right? Maybe I was a little emotional for my losses, but looking back at my brokers after I'd cut the loss, I actually was going to get bought in anyway, right? I actually, after I cut it, I then checked my email and I actually got an email saying I was going to get bought in the last 30 minutes of the day, regardless whether I cut or not. So it was either I was taking a loss myself or my brokers were going to take a loss for me. So, unfortunately, that is frustrating, but that's ultimately what led to another, $1,600 in losses. So at this point, I'm now down $3,600. I do come back on the 21st and I do pull out a couple small wins. But ultimately, I just kind of sat back and realized like I'm just trading so poorly, so bad. From GNPX chasing weakness, from just not, trading all these non-ideal plays. And so I kind of had to just reflect and take a seat back. And I actually had a good talk with Huddy. I called him up and I just kind of expressed to him like what I'm going through, and he was like, yeah, man, like the way I'm going to paraphrase what he said to me. The way I perceived what he said to me was, his main short and setup is the first red day, whether it's an oversetted gap down, whether it's the first red green move. The point is that is really his one setup, right? He may try to trade other little things here and there, But the reality is he makes the majority, almost all his money on one setup. And so, and you probably hear that a lot. You probably hear like me, I've said it plenty of times. Clearly, Huddy is saying it. You've heard Sykes, Grittani. If that's what Grittani did, he's only focused on like one or two setups when he first started. You hear this thing, stick to a setup, because that's gonna be able for you to make money consistently over and over again. But what Huddy explained to me, he was like, yes, that's true, but he's like, I stick to one setup to be safe, right? I stick to one setup because I know trading anything else will likely lead to losses, right? So it's like the flip side of the coin, right? He's not sticking to one setup because he thinks that's where he'll make his most money, which is true though. He will make his most money sticking to that one setup, but he is sticking to one setup because it actually keeps him safe from losing money on other non-ideal plays. And so that kind of flipped my perspective. I was like, whoa, that he has a great point there. And so that's kind of what I reflected, right? I was taking like the PAVM and the PLUG trades, like they're just not ideal, and they weren't keeping me safe because I was taking these losses on them, right? I just over and over and over again. Before you know it, I could take 5, 6 losses of $400, $500, $600, and before you know it, I'm down two and a half grand. Um, and another thing too is that back in December, you know, anything I touched in December, it went red, right? I think I had like a 25, NASDAQ win streak, which is insane. Like I've never had a streak like that. And so for me to touch any NASDAQ so well and have it work so well, and then to take those bad habits of maybe too much chasing and too much just stabbing into a stock to come into February where the market was extremely hot and strong the first, 2 to 3 weeks, I learned bad habits in December, right? And that really bit me in the ass come the week 3 of this month. Anything I touched pretty much squeezed me, essentially. And so that's something I have to consider moving forward. I have to be more selective with ideal plays, and I have to, not just short weakness because I think something's weak. Like I have to really be selective on not only what type of play I take, but the type of entry I want, right? Is it a safe entry? Is it a good entry compared to where I'm risking? That kind of thing. And last thing that I haven't really mentioned in this month so far is that going into this month, after having a really good week or a really good month of January, I wanted to size up, right? For a very long time, for probably the last 6 months, I have not sized up. I have stayed relatively the same size that I've always stayed across all setups. Like maybe, on promotions, I've increased size. On maybe one or two other setups, I've increased size, but generally across the spectrum of my entire system, I've stayed the same risk. But as my account's getting bigger, it's like, when am I going to push myself? When am I going to, continually, extend and exceed my levels to becoming a better trader? And so February was that month. I did increase size. Now, something I forgot about because I haven't increased size in so long, I had forgot how much increasing your size can elevate your emotions. So, you know, between having more fear, having more greed, having, making more emotional decisions. I mean, I broke, I think on six to 10 different trades, I broke one of those rules, whether I was emotional trading, whether it was being too fearful, whether it was being too greedy, like space, that was me clearly being greedy, like to have that wash and not take that out, take some profits or more profits, you know, so having bigger size certainly, you know, changed my decision making, and that's not how you want to do it. Now, of course, is that going to happen more times than not? Probably, right? That's the challenge of increasing size. But ultimately, I have to kind of have that new size become my my baseline and more where I'm more comfortable with. So now I can kind of get back to making the right decisions with new size, with new bigger size. And so I do think I did a better job of that come the 4th week. The 4th week is when, of course, the whole market indexes completely started tanking due to coronavirus. A lot of coronavirus plays started spiking, hundreds of percent in just this week alone. So this last week was absolutely nuts. So let's go into some trades there. So on Monday, this is kind of Monday really helped me kind of snap out of it, and from week 3 and into week 4, where there was CEOCP, which was just a runner from 50 cents now, gapping up to over $2 and pushing 250. And so I'm thinking it's going to need a lot, right, to gap up so big from I think it closed at like 130, right, to gap up almost nearly another 50% or like 40-50%. Um, it's just nuts. Like, of course, we're in a hot market. It could easily keep going. But I thought to myself, if it doesn't keep going, right, if it shows signs of topping out, it's going to pull, right? There's going to be a lot of people who want to take profits. And so that's what I was watching for. Now, again, I was still a little bit emotional from my third week, right? I was still kind of, in a daze. I wasn't seeing the market clearly. And so what ended up happening was, again, I was just kind of similar to ONTX, right? I was just kind of stabbing. I shorted here, covered into this pop, shorted again, had to cover into here. I think I shorted a third time into like this and into this bounce, and then got squeezed again. And so I just took a step back. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I don't have a plan. I'm just trying to like scalp around, thinking I can just enter and be right. Like and the reality is, it never broke over 250, right? So if any short I took after the first 5 minutes, and I just said I'm going to risk high day of 250, no questions asked. I'm going to cut it there. At any price action before that, I'm not cutting. Look what happened, right? I would have been right, but again, I decided to take 3 different trades and get squeezed on all of them, and then cut before my wrist gets broken. Like, before you know it, I was down $600 over 3 stupid trades. And so finally, I said, I'm done with this ticker. Like, the only way I short it if I see something completely just dead obvious, and I did, right. Unfortunately, I took a step back. I chilled back, kind of like ONTX. I just kind of took a step back. I was like, what are you doing? Like, clear the fog. Like, let's see things clearly. And so what happened was, it had this panic, right? Similar to this one, but again, this bounce was not nearly as strong as this one, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, I'll give this stock one more shot, this stock one more chance. I took much smaller size into this bounce. I then faded. I covered into these dips. Luckily, again, wasn't greedy, because otherwise I would have got caught in this bounce, which happened to me a few times back in January. If you watch that review, I got caught in a few bounces like this. And I'm just happy that I wasn't greedy. I made, I think a quarter of my loss back. So from losing like 600-700, I was only the loss only turned into 450 on the day on this sticker. But again, it's like, I just wasted so much energy and effort into this middle, and all I had to do was wait for this bounce, right? If you just ignore any of this, action here, and just get short here, right? Yes, your risk would have been a little wider. Yes, you wouldn't have had a good of entry, but what are the odds that you actually make money? Way better, right? There was no struggle to be in the money after you shorted this bounce. Versus here, there was so much choppiness, which is just, sometimes it isn't worth your mental capital. So that was one here. And then we look at Corv. Corv, I played incredibly well because I took my lesson immediately, and because both these were running at the exact same time. Immediately after learning my lesson in CEOCP, I took that to heart and played Corv very well. It was, from 30 cents to nearly 60 cents in 2 days. Again, same thing, huge gap, huge spike. I'm thinking, if it can't go any higher, it's gonna fade, right? There's gonna be people who want to get out, and I want to be there for that. So again, I'm ignored all of this action, didn't touch any of it, right? And all of a sudden it panics, hard crack. And so now all this, what was support in this high 50s, 60s should be resistance, right? And so we bounce, I get short of this bounce, I short this bounce again, we pull some. This one was a little bit strong of a bounce, but again, it's still topping out at the previous resistance of 58, 60. And then I stay patient. We just keep fading, and we keep, bounces keep failing. And before you know, we pull into this red. It's now red on the day right here. I cover for, I think, how much did I make? Made like $1,000, right? So from losing almost 500 on COCP, and then taking that lesson, immediately making $1,000 back on CORV, like, I really took that lesson. I'm really glad I implemented that quickly, because you see, there was really no headache, right? I didn't try to like guess the top here like I did on COCP and get squeezed, or just cover too early without a proper plan. I just got short after the first crack into the first bounce, and just let it work. Trusted my plan. It was going to stop out if it might hit my wrist, but it didn't even get close. And so I just let it work. And that's how you get paid, fairly easily. So we keep going. Tom's was now an iVirus stock runner. It did have a breakout over 48 cents here. You see this little top over here. So once it broke, I think the breakout was 46. Once it broke 46, I didn't take it because I'm not good at breakouts, right? But I was watching it because, again, when sector momentum gets hot, as in coronavirus, I do get interested, right? I do want to see if I could, maybe push myself on the long side a little bit. And so the high day was 48. You then see this volume coming in, breaking 48. So I got long, and quickly it started working right away, right? All the virus stocks are getting hot. All the virus stocks are running super, super hard. And so by the time it spikes to 60, 50, high 50s, 60s, I'm out, right? I made a quick like $400 or $500. That was super, super cool. And it kept running, right? It closed over 60. And so I'm thinking next day, of course, the virus stocks could have still kept running. And some of them did. The listed ones kept running. But this one is, again, an OTC. It's a little bit sketchier of a company. So I thought, if it was weak, I do want to get short. I want to give this short a chance. And so it did actually gap down. I didn't short here because I wasn't going to chase. And then actually spikes perfectly into red green. 60 was the red green level. And you see how it holds that perfectly. I got short right into this bounce. I then actually cover right into this pull immediately because if you notice, the low of this pull was 46, right? That was the previous breakout level. And I had that in mind. I already knew going into it, 46, 48 was that breakout level from the prior day. And so I wanted to cover right around there. And I ended up covering right at 48. Perfect timing, avoided, this bounce and trying to maybe recover, get a second chance to cover. I was already out by then. So made like 800 bucks, 700 bucks there, I think. Super happy about that play. So again, I'm getting back in the groove, right? After taking, this tough losses week 3, I'm finally starting to see the market more clearly. I actually did try to long again on Tom's on this day. But for all the virus stocks running super hard and this thing just kind of trading sideways, I kind of second guessed myself. I was like, this isn't going to run. Like, I don't want to stop out and take a loss on this. So I sold. Of course, 30 minutes later after I sold, it rips and rips next day. So that is frustrating. But again, I'm not the best at longing, right? I already did well enough making some money on this day, so I'm not going to be upset that I didn't make money on this day. It's just going to happen. I'm not going to be able to nail everything. And so then coming into the last day, or the second to last day of the week, was TNPX. TNPX has always been a really crappy stock. Just from prior experience, like if you've watched this trade, it usually never holds its gains. And so I was looking for that into late day. And so I did that, right? It totally pulled. I got short into this bounce. Let's get zoom in here more. I got short into this bounce, covered some into this pull. And I thought, I'm going to hold the rest overnight. Like, again, if you look in the daily chart, if you have your software up, go back. The daily chart usually always never has a second day. Like, it just one and done, it's over. And so I thought, okay, I want to hold some overnight. Now, what I totally underestimated was how hot the sector momentum of the coronavirus would get, right? And this put out news about the coronavirus, so it tied itself to the sector. And so in after hours, it squeezes. And so immediately I knew I totally underestimated this. I unfortunately did cover like right at the top here, which is frustrating. But again, it's only a $450 loss, so not like I lost big. And again, I'm so glad I covered because imagine if you were in this situation and you just stubbornly held. Guess what would have happened? You would have gotten absolutely squeezed, right? And just imagine, right? I had an entry at 92 cents, right, into this bounce. Could you imagine holding this and being stubborn into and then opening it up at 190? That's ridiculous. You're down 100% in overnight, and that's why it's just so important to cut it. And so I knew when it was squeezing here, it's like even if I didn't cut it, right? Or sorry, even if I didn't, want to cover. The reality was I knew this is falling in the sector, and the worst decision you could possibly ever make is to hold this after hours, hold on overnight after hours closed. So I knew I had to cover no matter what the price was. That's why I got out, unfortunately, at the top. But the reality is, right, looking in hindsight now, that was the best decision I could have made because I don't think you want to be squeezed 100% into a gap up like this. So that was that. Really dodged that bullet. But then, all these other plays come the dump day, the first red day of these, at least on Codex and APT. I actually have the charts up of those, my entries and exits. Check those out here, see if it loads. I don't think it's going to, but yeah, forget it. Anyway, but I have the charts here. I just don't have the entries up. But again, so huge red day. Didn't actually short this day, but I was able to recognize that it was weak on this day. How did I recognize that? You see the top here at like 50 cents or 20 cents, or not 20 cents, $20, and it failed there, right? It couldn't keep going. And after being up 100% over 3 or 4 days, at some point there's going to be a pullback. Now, granted, the virus is it's not just over. Like the virus is still a real thing. It's still a real danger. But having it go so high for so quickly in such a short period of time, there's going to be a pullback, right? There's going to be a downside move at least sometime. And so I did post the charts on Twitter. You can see them there. But I did get short into like this little area right here, risked this 20 level because that was the previous high. And I just waited, right? I finally got back to sticking to a plan. I wasn't trying to like guess tops and bottoms like I was on CEOCP. I just waited and I let it panic, and I covered into this panic right here for, I think it was on the Codex. Yeah, 1500 on Codex. I did the same exact thing on APT, made 2100 over there. Was actually a little more patient on the APT and shorted right here. Got a nice panic there. NVAX and IBIO, I did take losses on, but they're the ones who have actually held green. So come Monday, the virus stocks are probably going to be strong. But if they aren't, and if they're weak, these stocks, IBO and NVAX, still have yet to make a decent pullback. So we'll be watching those. We'll see how that goes. Now, that's pretty much the month. I'm very happy to have kind of gotten over this little bump in the road of what happened in week 3. Uh, Going into next month in March, I do have to consider and be very, hyper aware of my size. I do want to keep pushing myself and taking bigger size, but I won't be increasing size from what it was in February. I'll keep my size the same, but I do have to kind of remind myself every trade I take, if I find myself making emotional decisions quickly, I will just reduce my size, right? I do, I want to keep pushing myself and make sure I can keep ascending as a trader to get better. But at the same time, I can't just ignore the potential bumps in the road that I'm going to face by doing that. So that's something I do have to consider. I'm going to keep a hard track of. And so we'll just keep going. March with the sector momentum of the coronavirus plays, it's going to be looking pretty insane, probably just as insane as February has been. So hope you guys like it. Enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time. Later.